Okay, well, this is, I'm Maloney, and this is Evelyn. And we're from the MIT Media Lab, and we're going to talk about Scratch. How many people have heard about Scratch before? Oh, great. Wow, that's great. I guess the first thing to say is, where did Scratch come from? So, we got the idea for Scratch, or actually, I should say Mitchell Resnick, who's head of the Lifelong Kindergarten Group, got the idea for Scratch from work he was doing with these after-school computer centers called the Computer Clubhouse. This was started, gosh, I think about 15 years ago. Originally it was just kind of local to the Boston area, but then Intel funded it, and it's now grown to a network of about 100 different computer clubhouses all around the world. So what we saw happening at these computer clubhouses was a lot of media stuff. Kids were doing Photoshop, they were making songs with Acid Pro. They were making cover art for their CDs and burning CDs. They were doing all this cool media stuff. What they weren't doing was programming. And we said, well, why is that? This seems like a missed opportunity. And we looked around, and there just wasn't anything that was that easy to use. There was GameMaker, there was Logo Microworlds. There were a few things that people were doing, and then there was, sort of Java and stuff was available, but it wasn't catching on. So we decided to try to create a computer programming language that was really easy to use, even without any adult supervision, like no computer science instructors around. So that's how Scratch came about. We got an NSF grant to help us develop it, which meant that my temporary gig of 6 months has turned into a 6-year gig, which is really nice. So I guess the first thing to do is to show you Scratch. So I'm going to actually show you that these slides were in Scratch. So we do use Scratch ourselves to make things. I'm going to say make a new project here. And when you start out, you get this sort of stage area here. You start with an initial object called a sprite, this cat. And you can make it do things. So in the motion category here, there's a command called move. To see what this does, I just double click it and I observe. What does it do? It moves. Great, cool. Here's in the sound category, there's a command here that makes a drum sound. And if I want to make a little program, I can just stick those two things together. So now it moves and then it plays a drum, and it does those in sequence. Kids don't always necessarily pick up initially that it's a sequence. But anyway, I'm gonna make a longer sequence. I'll duplicate those two things, and I'm going to change this 10 here to -10. So you can jump that way and kind of jump back, and maybe I'll change this to a different sound. So now if I put those together, I get a little longer sequence. And I'm getting tired of using the mouse though, so I'm gonna hook it up so that when I click the space bar, oh, that's much better. But I'm getting tired of hitting the space bar. So I'll put this loop around it, this forever loop, and you notice that it just kind of grows to go around it. You don't have to worry about putting an end curly brace on it or anything. When I get that going, I get a little dance happening. But it's a little fast, so I'm going to slow it down. Maybe I'll make it 0.4 here. Okay, now we got a little almost swing. Roger would say it's not quite swing. So now it's a little slower. So one of the cool things about Scratch is that you've got tinkerability, is what we call it. I think sort of PD has that. It's running all the time, and you can change the parameters while it's running. I can change this to a different kind of drum, stuff like that. And that, I think, is very powerful for people to sort of explore and discover what's happening as they're working with it. Another feature that Scratch has is that it never, or hardly ever, except if we've made a mistake, gives you an error message. So, your program, whether it does what you intended or not, it does something, and you always feel like you're kind of moving towards something that's really working. Okay, so, did I hear a question? No. It doesn't always have to look like a cat. Well, first of all, the cat comes with 2 costumes. So costumes are kind of like clothes. You can put on different ones. And you can see that if you put more costumes in here, if I just alternate between these, we can make the cat sort of walk. If you put a lot more, you could get cool animation sequences. But I can also import something. So I'm going to import this picture of myself. And I can make myself dance, actually. Okay, cool. But I can also do other things. Like in this looks category, there are effects like changing the color. So, wow, I feel ill. I'm actually going to try to make a little interactive thing where I make the color vary as I change the mouse. So I'll just put this in this forever loop. The forever loop in this case is kind of your friend because it lets you just make stuff that continuously happens. So it's like a little process. And you can have several of these forever loops running at the same time. In fact, I'm going to copy this and make another one, but I'm going to change the color effect to be this whirl effect. And by the way, one of the people who helped us come up with some of these image effects, I think is in the room, is Dan Shipman? Yeah, he's back there. So Dan helped us come up with some interesting image effects that we could include here, and I think he prototyped them in processing. So, okay, so now, as I move the Y up and down, I twist, my face sort of twists, and as I go left and right, I get seasick. So that's a quick Scratch demo. And, oops, everyone's your thing turned off. I want to show you some projects that people have made. So, what kind of things, oh, actually, let me save this real quick. So I'll just save this because I'm going to come back to it. And I guess the one other thing I will do is I'll put, these green half blocks mean that if I can, rather than double clicking on them, I can hit the flag to make this project start. Okay, so I'm going to save all of that. And look at a couple of projects that kids have done. So the first one I'll look at is basically it's a whole movie created, or an animated movie created by a girl in California, I believe. What's that? Season of this anime show that she's created. And this is the sort of season trailer for it, so she's kind of showing you what's So I won't show you the whole thing just to save time, but it's quite impressive, especially I think the artistic quality. Since this conference is about art, that brings up another project. So we just found this online this morning. We sort of looked for projects that used the pen characteristics in Scratch. So this one is from a girl in France, 14. You can change some of the parameters. So she actually copied this from another kid's project in a process we call remixing that she found on the website, and I think that project was done by a 14-year-old. So, or sorry, by a 9-year-old. So you get 14-year-olds copying 9-year-olds' projects and making their own variations of them. Cool stuff like that. One more kind of thing that people make is games. As you might expect, this is a fairly nice platform for creating games. And oops, that's not the one. I'll show it first. So here's a fairly conventional Tetris game, and this was the process. This was actually a collaborative process. It started out in black and white. It didn't have all the different controls. It didn't show what the next block was going to be. But then some other person said, "Look, you know, Tetris is. Everybody knows what Tetris is. I'm going to do my own variation of Tetris." So he made this version of it, where. So with this one, you have to move this block through the maze. And I think he's automatically generating the maze. So this was made by So this was made by a boy from Belgium, is that right? 12 years old, I believe. Okay, so hopefully I haven't gone too far over. Oh, it doesn't look like too bad. Evelyn is going to tell you a little bit about the website. Oh, right. So I saved my project, and actually I want to share this project that I created. So where did I save it? My project. So this was such a cool project that I'm sure everybody's going to want to play with my face. So I'll put in my name and password here. And my project's good. I'll upload it to the Scratch website. And in a few seconds, if we have good wireless, we should get it up there.
There's like 50 people with laptops using wireless.
Okay.
Great, so now you saw Scratch, and I'm going to show the Scratch website. So a lot of people, they like to make a lot of cool things in Scratch, like all the projects that you just saw. And I'm going to refresh quickly here, and I see that actually under newest projects, right now I see John's project that he just shared in front of all of you. So basically right here at the top on the Scratch website, the first thing you see are the latest 3 projects that somebody just shared. And I bet in a couple of minutes, if I refresh, I'm going to see a brand new set of projects right here. We get about a project a minute uploaded to the site. And if I click on it, actually I can just run the project right in the website, because it's just a Java applet that we have. So I'm going to click on it. Hope this loads quickly, and it works just like you saw. Go up and down, and he twists around, go right to left, and you get seasick. And right underneath here, I see the user that uploaded it, 0 minutes ago, and already 2 people have looked at it.
Oh, famous! Probably people in this room.
Okay. Yeah. So no. So that's like the first 3 projects you see here. And the next 3 are projects that we feature, much like YouTube will feature videos on the YouTube site. We'll, as a Scratch team, we feature projects that we think are cool, not necessarily super complex, just like really neat uses of the Scratch tool to make animated series, or just nice games, or a nice greeting card for your grandmother, or things that we like that stand out for us. We feature here, so these are usually pretty neat to look at. The next section is really interesting. It's called the top remixed lately. John mentioned a little bit what remixing is. So we try to, here on the Scratch community, try to foster a culture of remixing. And what it means is that as soon as these projects go up, they're pretty much free for anyone to download and open. So again, when I'm here looking at John's project, I'm like, wow, that looks really cool, but I'd rather the whirling go right to left and the color to go up and down instead of the way he has it. So I could actually click on his project here, and download it, and just open it and see his blocks. I could change his blocks, to do what it is that I want them to do, and then click upload. And then what will happen is that the project will get uploaded, and underneath it'll say, this is Evelyn's, this is Evelyn's project, and underneath it'll say, based on John's project. And I'll show you an example of that in a second. And then down the bottom you can see just more surprise projects, which ones are the most loved lately, the most downloaded, etc. Oh, and at the very bottom you see here this live stat that says there are currently 350,000 projects on the site with a total of 8.9 million scripts. Those are just the stacks of blocks that you saw. And 2.7 million sprites with 54,000 active contributors on the site. 54,000 active contributors where 240,000 people have signed up for the site. And then it says that's a lot of scratching, okay. So people have user pages, so I'm just going to go quickly and show the user pages of some of those projects that you saw earlier. The first one is this girl, Maho Ashley, very popular. She likes to create a lot of these anime videos. You can see here she's a really prolific site, 19 pages of projects that she's uploaded. And somewhere in the history is that episode entry that John showed you earlier. Here's another one. This is C. Muriel. She's from France, like John mentioned. She's a teenager from France, and she likes to work more on kind of these mathematical artistic projects. So you can see some of her thumbnails where she's done things more like turtle geometry, if some of you are familiar with that. And if I click on this project, which is the one that we found this morning, that John showed you a second ago, it's the same one. I'm going to stop it. Underneath here, you'll see that it says, maybe it's a little hard to read, but it says C. Muriel shared it 3 months ago, but it's based on Duty's project. And then if I click here on this link, I can actually just very quickly see where it was that she found her inspiration, and this remixing chain, basically. I hope it loads. I didn't have it loaded. So this had been his version. It was not interactive, it's just an animation. Pretty similar. But you can kind of see how she was inspired by this, pretty much almost just copied it, but then added an interactive element and changed the song to be more culturally relevant to her. Right? Another really amazing thing that happens on the site, again, we really try to foster this culture of remixing. Some of the kids are hesitant at first. They say, no, don't copy my project, please. And then we try to explain that it's actually a way for you to learn from each other. And then some people take that to the other extreme. Some people don't want things to be copied, and others ended up finding out something interesting they could do on the site, which was, well, one thing I haven't shown yet is that underneath, at the bottom of these projects, you can leave comments, again, kind of like on YouTube. And so users are constantly leaving each other comments, constructive criticism, and so they're fun to look through. So they'll say, I don't like that song, why don't you try this one? But then what we started finding was that some people are really good in Scratch at like specific things. Some people are really good at making just an animation, and so they'll spend a lot of time drawing frames and getting an animation going. Some people are really good at like writing sequences of music with all those music blocks that we have in there. So some people were just creating only animations, only music, and they decided that maybe they could start collaborating. I write an animation, can you draw my background? And somebody else will come in and say like, okay, this isn't fun, I want to make it into a game. And basically out of those kinds of interactions here in the comment threads, kids started making companies, and they actually started naming their companies. So we have a few we can point out. I'm just going to talk quickly about one. They call themselves Gray Bear Productions. So they made themselves a group page here on the Scratch website. And they started, here's actually something pretty far along this page, but they started simple. They wanted a logo, so they drew a few versions of a koala bear and gave each other comments. And they have this group page here where everybody would upload their project here to this group page, so they kind of had a space where they could collaborate. And it started with the logo, and then they had a game idea. They called it Night at Dreary Castle. And so here on this page, we basically here and then Scratch team, we got to see their development. They added animations little by little, game logic little by little, and at the end, once they were ready and they were happy with it, they released the game, as a company. But again, these kids they didn't know each other beforehand or didn't ever meet in person. They just kind of did this just on the website.
They had trailers that came out in advance, and I think it was time to come out on Halloween, and they actually made their deadline.
Yeah, like you said, better than we can do. It's been impressive and inspiring, really, to us, to see the kinds of collaborations that have come out on the website, things that actually, we didn't expect for sure. So those are some of the stories from the website. And now John's going to talk. So yeah. We've given here some sense of the kinds of people that come on our website and use it and how many projects are there. But there's actually more people around the world that have been using Scratch, and John's going to talk some more about that.
Go back to my Scratch slides. Okay, so actually you saw a more up-to-date version of these statistics, so I'm just going to blow by those. But this shows you a little bit of a history of the website. We went public right here in May of 2007, and so there was obviously a big jump there. Actually, one thing that helped is, for those of you who are trying to create user communities, Mitchell used to work as a reporter for Business Week, I think, so he kind of understands how to get the press to do things for you. So see, he sent out press releases all kinds of places, like the New York Times and stuff. New York Times didn't do anything, but the BBC actually did. So we got a big spike. In fact, it brought our server down when we the official day we went public. But nevertheless, we sort of recovered from that, and then the site has continued to grow. I mean, there was some initial excitement that died down, but then it kind of just gradually has grown. And there's a couple of interesting things in this graph. Oh wait, does this graph show it? No. April, January. Yeah. We've discovered that kids actually do less Scratch when they get their Christmas presents. So there's a little dip around Christmas, and there's also a little dip around spring break. And there's also every week there's a cycle, and I can't remember which way it goes. I think they do more Scratch on weeknights than on weekends, which I don't know if that's exactly what that reflects, but it's interesting. The age distribution is sort of what we were hoping for. It's a little younger. When we were thinking about the Computer Clubhouse age range is, I think, 10 to 18. So that's the age range we were kind of thinking of. And it seems like Scratch, the age range, is more like kind of 8 to 16, 8 to 14. So in this graph here, it's hard to read the numbers, but this peak right here, it corresponds to 12, so this is 11, 12, 13, a little dip at 14, and then actually some of the older teenagers do a bit more scratching. A few surprises for us were this long tail. I mean, we really didn't think kids over, around 18 or so would be using Scratch. But in fact, I believe that this little bump here, this is my speculation, reflects the parents of kids that are in this range. And then these little spikes here, we just figured out last night where they came from. That we were mystified, like why these spikes? And it turns out they correspond to even decades. When you're putting your name, your age in, when you sign up for the Red website, and this, I should say, this is all self-reported data. But anyway, when you put your name in, you put your birth year. And so people are going, 1980, this one is 1980, 1970, 1960, 1950. For some reason, I think they're rounding to the nearest decade. And I don't know why people do that, but it's kind of an interesting phenomenon. Okay, right. So besides the website, we have statistics about, at least self-reported statistics. We know how many people are uploading. There's a whole other group of people that are using Scratch that I think are not visible on the website. And some of those are after-school places. So there is the computer clubhouse. Scratch is getting used, not everywhere, but in many of the computer clubhouses. It's being used in other after-school settings, like at summer camps. I just talked to somebody in Georgia who teaches Scratch to Girl Scouts and, in summer camps and in after-school camps on weekends. It's being used at some science museums. There's a great guy at the University of Minnesota who's been using Scratch for all kinds of things. Wonderful stuff. We got Scratch onto the EXO computer. So now we're getting Scratch reports from all over the world, from the strangest places like Mongolia and Nepal and the Australian outback. And oh, Scratch is great. I'm using it with Aborigines to teach them English. And okay, cool. We didn't expect that, but that's really neat. One of the nice things about the sort of working with the OLPC group is that they have a translation system on a server called Poodle. And working with that, we put all of the sort of strings in Scratch on that server, and we've had many, many people help us by making translations. So Scratch now works in 45 or so different languages, including non-Western character sets like Chinese and Korean and even Arabic and Hebrew. And actually, I could sort of briefly show that. If you switch to a language that goes right to left, like Hebrew, for example, all the blocks flip around. So to me, this looks like whoa. I woke up in a weird dream and everything. But people in those cultures, I mean, that's the way they want to see things, and so it's cool. And the nice thing is that because it's a blocks programming language, the labels on the blocks don't really matter to the semantics. And the shape, whether it's mirror imaged or not doesn't matter. So you can present the same code to people in their own language. And if you upload a project to a website and somebody from somewhere else downloads it, they can switch it to their language and read the code. So that's pretty cool. I guess one other thing about the EXO thing that was a little surprising is Birmingham, Alabama decided to sort of really do one laptop per child in their school system, either K through 5 or 1 through 5 grades. And they've discovered that Scratch is a great learning tool in that context. So those are some of the places we know about. Oh, and I guess that's a segue into saying that Scratch is also getting used in a fair number of schools, we think. But many schools have policies that say that they can't upload, kids can't get on the internet, can't upload things. So it's really hard to measure how much that's happening. All we hear is like the cases where it doesn't work because they're trying to upload through a proxy or firewall. And so we know that it's happening from the error reports we get, but we don't know how much. Okay, right, so I wanted to briefly mention a few sort of follow-up things or related work that we've done or that other people have done with Scratch, just so that you sort of see that there's other ideas. So everybody always says, oh, how about Scratch on a phone? So we actually did a prototype of this, and then Samsung turned it into a product, although I don't think it's been so well received. And one issue is just that handsets all have different size screens. It's really kind of a mess. But we did make it so that you could author Scratch on a desktop and put it on a phone. Somebody from NEC came and spent some time with our group, and he made a version of Scratch that can control this Papero robot. This is from NEC. Then a graduate student in our group, I think the Alice person was mentioning Second Life. So this is Second Life, and he created a version of Scratch that can generate Linden script code, and so you can actually program objects in Second Life using Scratch. I already mentioned the EXO, as you can see, but in general, I think we're starting to work more and more with people who are interested in education in developing countries. So that includes Nokia, Microsoft, Intel, various companies, and Sun, I guess, are very interested in developing both programmers and obviously a market for their products in developing countries, and they see Scratch as a possible tool for them to use. Another related project done by a colleague of ours is Turtle Art, and I guess I'm mentioning it because this is an art and code conference, and I was really hoping that, it would have been cool if Brian Silverman could have come and shown this. This is really sort of an extension of logo turtle graphics in the interest of real art, and so he's created this whole sort of turtleart.org website. He's got tons of really beautiful examples and some software that you can, if you email him and ask, I think he'll download it. He'll tell you where to download it to create this. And this is also a blocks-oriented thing. Evelyn will show you a little bit more about some of that stuff right now, I guess.
So looking a little bit to the future, we're kind of ready. Scratch has been out for almost 2 years now. And we're about to release a version 1.4. Sorry. But we're kind of let that version stick around for a while and stabilize. And we're thinking more just like, what's the next big thing that we can try? Now that it's been out for a while, and we were in beta for a while. What do we want to do next? And there's two reasons for the next big jump that we're going to make. Scratch has been developed in Smalltalk, and I don't know how many of you are familiar with that. And it's starting to reach its limitations for us. For example, one thing was that all that nice, the Hebrew text that you saw in Scratch was actually quite a chore. Smalltalk didn't support Unicode text. It kind of predated that, and we had to build it all in, which was fun. Also, we've kind of found that, Scratch is so tinkerable, it's just kind of so easy to get started. You don't need much of a big stage to see what you're doing. We found that, the process of downloading Scratch and having to get all these files sorted out and programming is almost a hindrance to just playing. So we have this dream of, bringing the Scratch programming environment just to the web and have it be right in the browser. Since we have this great online community that's already, using the website so heavily, why not just bring the programming right to the website too, and just let the kids, have it be a more integrated experience. They're programming, they're sharing, they're chatting, they're blogging, they're doing it all right there, and they don't really have to have this separate experience. So actually, the Turtle Art team have already made kind of a prototype of a block-based language, which is very much like Scratch, for Turtle Art in ActionScript. And I'll give it a really short demo of that right now. I should go back here first. These are just some thumbnails of some projects, Turtle Art projects like the ones that you just saw. But now what happens is that if I click on one, I don't have to download any software, the block's right there in my browser. And I can actually, this is interactive, these are some blocks that I can just take out and program with. And I can clear my stage here, click on the stack, and I'm programming right in the web. Again, this is all in ActionScript 3. And this is really inspiring for us. We're going to collaborate with them and start using the same source code for Scratch, we think, at least for prototypes. One kind of interesting version of this prototype that I helped develop is for RISD. RISD, John Myers at RISD now, and he's really excited about bringing something like a Scratch, simple blocks programming language to artists, the first-year artists at RISD. They talk about the foundations courses, the 2D and 3D foundations courses. Just like the students there are learning 2D foundations with pen and paper, and just like they're learning 3D foundations with just a lump of clay, they want them to start getting some kind of digital, foundations for some programming. because, you know, later on at the RISD education, I think they learn things like processing, and they do like this graphics programming that you're all familiar with. But for the first year students, they want kind of a gentle intro, and they think something like Scratch and this kind of block-based thing is appealing. But not so much maybe the colors and the interface and the way that it's kind of so busy, you know, very basic. So collaborating with some RISD professors, I created a version that's more for, you know, serious designers. But it's just very similar.
All shades of gray.
I mean, that was like, you know, specific. So this is, you know, the same thing you were just seeing, but like, you know, for designers. And actually I can hide the blocks because those are, oh no, you know, don't show all the blocks all the time. But, you know, pretty much same thing. I can just clear the canvas and run my loop and, you know, basically just the basic turtle geometry, but, you know, another prototype. And yet another prototype that I've been playing around with this source code is something that's maybe a little bit more like processing, because why not? You know, why not maybe make something that's an intro to processing that starts out with blocks? You can do a lot of the same things you can do in processing, and then just maybe lift the hood and just see some processing code under that, and then lift the hood and see some Java code under that, you know, have that be the progression. Here's like one of the canonical processing demos, but it's done now with these blocks, right? So it's just kind of a line that's, you know, being drawn. But there's no code, right? It's just the blocks. And then just to finish off, I kind of made just a simple one here. We have our lovely Art and Code logo. Oh no! Yeah, never mind.
That's our fault, honestly.
Yeah, the logo's not so lovely. Okay, well, never mind. It was just kind of another basic example. I mean, maybe this one will load it. It was very similar to this one, where there's a setup and draw. So again, here it's kind of more like processing, where there's just a setup and draw. And in setup, maybe I would set the size of my stage, and in draw, I just write some, you know, some things to be drawn on the stage continuously. And so this program, just as I move the mouse around, it's just putting some dots on the screen. So it's kind of, here it's a little bit more like processing in that it has a setup and a draw. That's all I wanted to show. Okay, and if you have questions about that, you know, feel free to find me afterwards, and I can send you these links if you want to play around with them. So then the last thing to talk about, some people have been asking me about this, and we just wanted to make a quick mention. Last year, you know, as we were starting to see this great Scratch community develop, and, you know, hearing all these great cases, people just coming, you know, emailing us and telling us about how they were using Scratch, we wanted to bring everyone together. Much like this conference, we had the first, you know, international annual Scratch conference last year in the summer, and it was great. You know, 300 people came by from all over the world, and we learned about people using Scratch in all kinds of contexts. It was really eye-opening and really heartwarming, actually. We had a great time. But actually I said annual, and it's not going to actually be annual. It was a lot of work. I think Golan can tell you how much fun it is to you know, set up one. And congratulations to Nolan. He's done like a great job. So our model for this year is something called Scratch Day. Not a conference, but just Scratch Day. And that's the URL if you want to find out more. But what Scratch Day, the idea behind Scratch Day is just that instead of bringing everyone to us out there in Cambridge, why not let people just self-organize and do their own kind of Scratch mini-conference, or just any sort of workshop, or, you know, presentation, or just meet up around Scratch. And we're supporting it by having a website where people can get a user account and create an event and advertise there, so to speak. And but that's it. We're just making the website and maybe providing some posters and some resources that people can use, but then we're just letting it happen on its own. And we're just hoping that on that day, you know, that a lot of people will just kind of cluster up around the world and you know, share in their Scratch excitements. And you can just see, and it's a little hard to see, but this is a snapshot from the Scratch Day website. There's already quite a lot of events that have been planned, and they're, you know, Europe and Asia and South America. You can see a lot around the U.S. and so I encourage you to go check out the site and maybe come by to a local event in your area if you're interested. So that's all we have to say. Thank you.